Hi, good afternoon. I'm Cyrus Mansouri. I'm a solicitor, and one of my areas of speciality is family law, divorce, and everything that's connected to that. What we're doing today is we're going to be doing a series of podcasts and breaking down the various elements of divorce law and the procedure in England, obviously, in England and Wales, and how you go about dealing with each aspect of the divorce, but legally as well as the other aspects of it, the financial aspects, and also any disputes that maybe exist in relation to children. Now, today's podcast is a basic one, really. We're just starting off with managing a divorce and where you might be wanting to start off and dealing with the issues, emotional and legal, and all sorts of things that are going to be arising at the beginning. Now, I've been involved in this area of work for a few decades now, and I've dealt with a lot of cases. I mean, probably a lot more cases than I could ever even count. I've seen all sorts of different situations, including some very distressing situations, and I've been asked questions by clients, over all of these years. And really, the aim of this is to try and answer some of those basic questions. Now, very often, most people who are going to be coming to us for a divorce, it'll possibly be the first time they're ever dealing with a lawyer about anything. And they'll be nervous, they'll be distressed, they'll be upset, they'll be anxious, aside from the fact that the emotional pressures of going through the breakdown of the marriage are going to be quite challenging. Some people come to us wanting a divorce. Some people come to us, they don't want one, but their spouse is forcing them into it. And as you can imagine, that there is a mishmash of emotions and feelings. But our role, apart from being the lawyer, is also to try and give some support to the client. Obviously, we can't advise someone whether to stay in a marriage or not stay in a marriage, but once you've made your decision, we can support you and try and guide you and help you through these various stages that you're going to have to go through to bring your marriage to a legal end. It's not our role to judge anybody, obviously. We've never done that. I often get asked in my private life, what do you feel doing this or that type of case or whatever. Well, it's just not my role to judge anyone. I just deal with everything on face value and on the basis of what my client tells me. And obviously, a lot of people come to us and they have to discuss some very personal aspects of their life, which they've never wanted to talk to anyone about in the past. Naturally, anything that you discuss with any solicitor in England is always going to be completely confidential. It certainly is with us. And that's whether it's during the lifespan of your case or after your case finishes or 10 years later. It doesn't make any difference. It's always going to remain confidential. So you can rest assured that nothing will go outside of my office. Obviously, colleagues who are working with me will know about your case, but beyond that, nothing will go outside the perimeter of the office. So confidentiality is something that anyone can always be sure of with any solicitor. Now, another matter that's likely to come up is, am I going to pay for my divorce privately, or do I want legal aid? Or indeed, the final option is, am I going to do it myself? That's very much a personal decision. Some people will want to pay simply because they just want it dealt with by a professional who knows what they're doing, because they don't want to spend any of their own time on it. They've got more valuable things to be exerting their energy on. Others may not be able to pay, in which case there is legal aid available for a divorce. It's quite restrictive. We don't offer it at our office, but it is available. And if you search Google, you'll come up with some local law firms that offer you legal aid, and they'll be able to help you and advise you through the various stages. And of course, nowadays it's becoming increasingly common for people to do their own divorces. Literally, most of the system is coming online, and you can almost log in, create a username, and do it online yourself. Now, I'll come back to that today because one of the questions is, do you need a lawyer? And I'm going to tell you whether you do or you don't, because I have to accept that there are the huge majority of people who are going through a divorce don't need a lawyer, because in most cases it's amicable, it's agreed. Both husband and wife have come to the conclusion that they want a divorce, and there's nothing to argue over. But it's not only arguments that lead to lawyers. There are other things, the complications. But as I said, we'll come on to that in a moment. What we offer is video link meetings. So it doesn't really matter where you're based. You can be anywhere in the world, quite frankly, as long as your divorce is in England, or is planned to be in England. So we'll be offering you a video link. We have our own secure platform. We'll send you a link. We'll explain how to join that. And it's a fixed fee, which at the moment is £100 plus VAT. And if you decide after that consultation to go ahead with instructing us, then we deduct that £100 from your divorce costs. And those are usually also fixed fees. And as I said, I'll come back to that towards the end of this, because I'll just wrap up the costs at the end of the blog. Now, if you are coming to any solicitor for a divorce consultation, what you want to do is try and prepare your questions before you get there. It's better for you, because in that heat of the moment, there's every chance that you're going to forget one or two things, and as you walk out the door, they suddenly come to you, and the chance for asking them may have passed. Takes time to get an answer, probably to an email or a phone call afterwards. So it's always a good idea. List out whatever your questions are, and whatever it is that you specifically are concerned about, and make sure you bring that list along. Apart from that, there isn't really anything you need to bring to the meeting other than maybe some identification of your own. And if you've got your marriage certificate, bring it along to the first meeting. That's if we're having a face-to-face meeting. If it's a video link meeting, then we'll probably be asking you to post those in to us. But beyond that, the information that we're going to want from you is going to be information, names, addresses, and dates when various things happened, when you got married, when you split up, when you separated, when you started living together, things like that. Names of your children, if you've got any, their dates of birth. So nothing that is particularly documentary. If you do have something that you think is very relevant, by all means bring it along, or have it available at the meeting. We'll talk about it. I've had situations where clients have got recordings, either on a mobile phone, or a voice recording, or I don't know, CCTV, whatever. These can be relevant. It all just depends on the situation. But in an ordinary run-of-the-mill, fairly straightforward divorce, that's not going to be necessary. Occasionally, when things are a bit more complicated, then that sort of thing will come into it. Now, it's a good idea to always ask about costs when you do come in. We offer a fixed fee divorce, which basically means that we quote you a cost at the beginning of the job, and that's probably all you're going to pay. Now, the reason I say the word probably is because in a very, very, very small number of cases, literally 1 or 2% of cases, something goes so drastically wrong during the divorce that requires more work that affects the cost. And that literally is in just 1 or 2% of the cases. In the huge majority of cases, what we've quoted the client at the beginning, which we do in writing, is going to be what they pay. And our fee for a divorce is generally £800. Now, added to that will be VAT, which goes to the government at whatever the current rate is. At the moment, while I'm making this recording, it's 20%. So 20% VAT on our £800 fee brings you up to £960, if my math is correct. And added to that will be the court fee. The court fee at the time of recording is £550. So you'll add that to the 960 you're paying the lawyer, and that's the cost of your divorce all in to the end. The court fees obviously change, so make sure you check that before you make your appointment, or we'll be advising you what it is whenever we do actually have an appointment with you. And as I said, that is going to be all you pay. It'll be in writing and it'll be agreed at the beginning. Now, I must stress that a divorce is just a divorce, okay? It doesn't include the financial dispute that you might have with your spouse. It doesn't include any dispute that you might have in relation to your children or their custody or contact or who they're going to live with or who they're going on holiday with. Those are all issues that are outside of the scope of a divorce. They are effectively extra work. Separate matters. Now, some of them very often will be dealt with just by writing a letter to the other side and it'll iron out the situation. But of course, again, in a very small minority of cases, those disputes will linger on and they'll end up becoming separate cases themselves. Now, in my firm, if we end up having to represent you in relation to something like the finances of the marriage or children matters, disputes, that would normally not be done on a fixed fee. It would normally be done at an hourly rate, which we would discuss with you at the time, and we'll go through, explain. We'll give you an estimate of what we think it's going to cost you, but the estimate is not fixed in stone, so it is flexible because it's difficult to know what's going to come up. But that's another matter, and we'll do a separate recording on that another day. What I provide at a meeting is essentially, in a nutshell, you will leave the consultation with all of your questions answered, whatever they are. So by the time you're finished with me, and most consultations last an hour, some of them will go over, some of them can go over quite a long way. We don't have any strict time limit, a ticking clock that stops you at any particular point. I'll continue the consultation until I've answered all your questions. But as I said, on average, about 1 hour. And by the time it's over, you will know exactly where you stand. You'll know what the law is relating to your matter. You'll know what the procedure is. You know how long it's going to take. You know what it's going to cost you. You know what any complications might be. You'll know it all. It'll all be explained to you bit by bit, right the way through to the end. So you'll have a clear idea of your situation at the end of that meeting. Now, if we do get instructed to do your divorce for you, it probably will mean that you will have no further involvement in the case beyond receiving reports from us and we'll send you work that we're doing and ask you to just tick it off and authorize it and say that you agree with it or not. You will not have to go to court. We do that for you. And you will not have to face your partner in a court environment or anywhere at all throughout the divorce process. It is in very, very few cases that is an exception, that you end up having to go to court. And even in those cases, it'll always be us that's doing the representation for you. At most, you might just have to be present. You wouldn't have to say anything. But for 99.9% of clients, they will never see a courtroom or a judge throughout their divorce process. Now, it is sometimes, I thought I'd put in a few pointers about how to pick a solicitor or an advisor in relation to your personal divorce, because again, that's another area that you might be thinking about. Do I need a lawyer? Well, I'm going to try and give you a very concise and at the same time comprehensive and very honest opinion of whether you do or you're not. So there's some key questions that you want to ask yourself at the beginning. So the first question is you need to decide on what type of divorce is going to be the right one for you. And what do I mean by that? Well, you've all seen on Google, there's plenty of companies offering quick divorces and fast divorces and online divorces and what have you. For the record, what they do is it's no quicker than anything anyone else does. They just say it is, but they do a divorce for you. and I'm not going to pretend that they don't. They charge you a very basic fee. It's all based on emails and online and things like that. You're not going to see anyone face to face. They fill in the forms, they submit them to court, and as long as everything goes smoothly, you'll get your divorce, usually for the fee they quoted you. You won't have all the trimmings of a lawyer that's going to be talking you through every step and literally, advising you about every possible technicality and eventuality, but they'll get the job done. And if you have reached a point with your spouse where you both agree on a divorce and you both just want to get it done, and there's really no debate, yes, I can't argue against using any of those companies. The same as I can't say, well, why don't you do it yourself? Because you can. As long as you can read and write, you can log on to the website, answer the questions, fill in the forms, click the buttons, pay the fee, and you're on your way. And with the help of podcasts like my one and our website and lots of other websites out there, you can find out what to do at each stage. It's not rocket science. A divorce is for the huge majority of people is not a problem, legally. I mean, emotionally, as I said, yes, of course it's hard, but it's not. I'm never going to tell anyone that you must have a lawyer. That's not the case. But I started the question by saying decide on what type of divorce is good for your circumstances, is right for your circumstances. And the reason I said that is because you may not be fitting into these boxes that I'm saying. You may be in a situation where there are very, very significant disputes. Okay, now they can be all sorts of things. They can be disputes about the facts of, why you're divorcing. You're saying it's the other person's fault. They're saying it's your fault, and neither of you are willing to agree that with the other one's point of view. There may be other disputes. There may be what we call jurisdictional disputes, where perhaps you've got reason to believe that your spouse is running off to file a divorce in some other country, and you need to do it here quickly before they do it because, first one in tends to be the one that goes ahead. There may be yet even more complications than that. Has the marriage been correctly, entered into? Is it a valid marriage? Is it a void marriage? Is it a voidable marriage? Are there issues that complicate matters? Is there adultery? Do you wish to pursue the matter of adultery? Are you going to name the person that's been the adulterer? These are issues that will complicate it. And those are online companies that offer fixed fees and things like that. They're not going to be able to handle these for you. They will at that point be telling you that you need to move on to someone more specialized. So again, can you handle this yourself? Well, it's becoming harder, but yes, you can. But it's at this point that you might be thinking to yourself, maybe I should have a lawyer, because there are all sorts of complications, time limits, deadlines, things like that could come into play. And if you miss one of them, then that's it. You've missed your chance, and you'll have lost that part of the case. So that's question number one. And then the other question that you want to ask yourself is, how complicated is your case? You know, honestly, how complicated is it? You know the answer to that. I don't. If you think it's not at all complicated, it's just a very straightforward, simple divorce matter, then again, it's something that you can probably handle on your own. But a lot of what I see is the other way around. I see the complicated stuff. I see the stuff where there are very significant disputes about all sorts of things. And I'm not going to go into them now, but anything can become a dispute, and the parties can disagree on it, even whether or not it was a valid marriage. I've had many cases where there's been arguments as to whether or not the parties are actually even married. So, are they married? So should they be getting a divorce? So again, how complicated is your case? And that's going to direct you to who you go to for help, if anybody. Question 3 that's worth asking yourself is, can I afford a solicitor? What is my budget? Well, I've told you what our fees are. I know that there are other lawyers out there that charge a lot more. I also know that there are some that will charge less. It's up to you. if you feel that what I've said is within your budget, then you'll obviously feel more comfortable with going ahead with that. If you don't have a budget, then again, you're looking at legal aid or doing it yourself. Question number 4 that you really want to be asking yourself is choosing a solicitor that specializes in family law. Now, this is important, okay? Please, when you go to an advisor, I'm afraid we live in a complex world. Don't just take it on face value that they're a lawyer. There's a website, Law Society of England and Wales. They've got a page called Find a Solicitor, Find a Lawyer. Just go onto that page, type in the person's name. It'll tell you if they're a solicitor or if they're not. Okay, if they are, they'll pop up on that page. It's free to search. And if they're not on that page, whatever excuse they give you, they're just simply not a solicitor. Okay, so please check it out, because the number of times I've had people come to me and tell me I've just spent, X number of £1,000 to Mr. So and so or Mrs. X, and she didn't do this, that, and the other thing for me, and I type their name in, and they're not even a lawyer. It may seem silly, but please just check it out. Once you've done that, you want to make sure that the person you're choosing has a speciality in family law, because solicitors, as a general rule, we're capable of doing all sorts of things. I mean, I know a little bit about all sorts of areas of law. I know about shipping law. I know about you name it, anything. But I'm no specialist in those areas. I'm a specialist in the areas that I deal with. And you want to pick someone who specializes in your problem, which in this case is matrimonial, divorce. There's no point getting a litigation lawyer to do a divorce. There's no point getting a probate lawyer to get a divorce. Okay, so again, that's something you can usually check on their online profile, or just ask them. Ask them straight up, is this your area of speciality? How many divorces have you done? How many years have you been doing this? Things like that. They'll often have rankings on Google and things. Google is a good place to go. Google rankings can be very indicative of who you're dealing with. They're left by, for the most part, by genuine clients. And they'll give you an idea of the type of firm you're dealing with. So at this point, you want to shortlist a couple of names of lawyers that you think are up to the job that you want, and then book appointments and go and see them. Now, some of them, like us, will charge a fee for the consultation. There'll be others that'll be offering you 15-minute free consultations. We used to do that. And quite frankly, we had to stop, because I just found that I spent my whole day giving free consultations and I never had time to do anything else. I was getting booked up, 10 to 15 people a day, and I just couldn't manage it. So we brought in the barrier and said, okay, we're going to charge for this, but what we'll do is, if you go ahead with us, we'll deduct it from that fixed fee. And if you don't go ahead with us, at least it compensates us for the amount of time we put into it, because we are giving you, at least an hour of full detailed consultation, as opposed to the 15-minute free one where they'll just hear you out, and at the end of the 15 minutes, they'll normally have not answered any questions other than to say, yes, we can help you, pay the money into our account. So you're not really any better off. So think about that carefully. Am I better off with 15 minutes free, or if I pay for a 1 hour proper consultation where I can really ask everything I want? Again, it's a personal decision. Some of you will say they're better off with option A, some of you will say B, but you need to ask yourself these questions. Now, when you come into the meeting, I'll also be asking you a lot about your finances and the issues relating to your children, if you've got any. And it might be that those are also in dispute. Now, if they are, I will normally be able to give you advice in that same consultation regarding those two matters. If we run out of time, I'll probably follow it up with an email later on. But financial disputes between couples, well, there's so many routes that we can go down to try and solve these. Mediation and trying to amicably agree things is obviously one of the first routes, and it's the one that the law also expects us to try. So it's not something that we can just discount straight away. Although I'll admit that in some cases it's obvious at the very first meeting that this husband and wife are never going to agree on the finances. But the law says that we need to try to amicably sort these things out, and we need to try mediation. As I said, sometimes mediation doesn't even get off the ground, but at least we need to give it a shot. So that's something that I'll advise you on, and I'll also advise you on how those types of cases generally develop and what sort of outcomes would fit your particular circumstances. So you see, at that stage of the meeting, I'll have an idea of what you own, what you owe, what your partner owns and owes, and what we call the matrimonial pot, which basically means the net value of everything that you and your spouse own. So we'll put all that together, add it up, deduct all the debts, the end total, that's the matrimonial pot. That's what's available for division between husband and wife in this divorce. And that's what's going to be the figure that I'll be using to advise you on what's likely to be a reasonably logical stroke sensible outcome. As far as following on is concerned, we can assure you that obviously we'll always be dealing with every aspect of your work fast and promptly. We keep you updated. And we'll also always be giving you regular updates in relation to any issues that might affect the cost of your work. So costs is not something where I'll give you an estimate today and then I'll simply just exceed that estimate and send you a gigantic bill at the end of the month. It doesn't work like that. I'll give you an estimate today, I'll sign that estimate and hand it over to you. And if at any stage in the future it appears to me that that estimate might not be accurate any longer, I will write to you and I'll tell you why I think it's not accurate, and I'll explain to you what extra work might need to go into it. And it'll all be explained to you. You'll always be free to say, no, I don't want that. And obviously, that's something we deal with, as it happens. But it's not a case of some of these stories that you hear that, I waved at my lawyer walking down the road and he sent me a bill. It doesn't quite work like that in the real world. And I think what I'm going to finish off with is to say that being a divorce solicitor it's not just about law and things like that. There is a psychological side to this job, which I never knew about when I first qualified. It came as a surprise to me. But you end up forming a friendship, almost with your clients. I mean, okay, we're not all mates and going out to dinner, but you develop a bond because they've shared the most private things in their life with you. And you're advising them on this sort of stuff. So there's something there. And we try our best to support you. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not any form of professional, in any form of medical work. But as a human being, we try to support you. We try to give you, emotional support. We try to give you positive energy. We try to just tell you that at least the things we're dealing with are going to be okay. There's always hope. As bleak as it looks, when you're in the middle of it, it will improve. Time heals, and it will heal in your situation too. So there is also that aspect of it. So picking a lawyer, yes, you're picking a professional to do a job for you, just as you would if you were picking a builder. But you also have to have a rapport with that professional. When you do pick your builder, you don't just pick someone off a website, send them a check, and expect them to hand you the keys to your refurbished house at the end of the job. It doesn't work like that. There's going to be a relationship. You're going to be involved in decision making. There's a lot of come and go in the job. And that's the same with a lawyer. You're going to be regularly in touch with us. You're going to be, as I keep saying, talking about private things that are very, very personal to you, and you want to be able to communicate with that lawyer. I mean, all too often you'll find that the lawyer that you'll meet on day one, when you first go to the office, especially for that 15-minute free consultation, there'll be some senior individual in the business, and you'll never see them again. As soon as you've given them your case and you've paid up your money, you'll be handed over to caseworkers, and you're never going to speak to that person again. They'll just never be available. These are things that we make sure we don't do, because we just try to offer that personal service, that personal touch. So if you see me on day one, I will give you that assurance that I will be available to you throughout your case. I will be dealing with every aspect of your case. I will have people helping me do that, but everything will be looked over by me, and you will be in touch with me all the way through it, non-stop. If you send a message through on email saying I need to speak with you, you'll speak to me and not to anyone else. Now, if I happen not to be available for that day, you'll certainly be speaking to me the next day. But if it's urgent, you'll speak to me as soon as you need to. So these are factors to be taken into consideration as you embark on this very, very difficult and traumatic decision in your life called divorce, which by any means is going to be one of the hardest decisions or jobs that you've ever done or had to go through. Extremely stressful, extremely painful for most people, and not an experience that anyone ever wants to have to do again. But with the right team in place, you can at least try to get through it with the least amount of emotional damage and financial loss. I hope that's been helpful. I'll be back again soon with stage 2, or I should say blog 2, which is going to be dealing with various aspects of the divorce process itself. So that's the petition, the acknowledgement of service form, the decree nisi, the decree absolute, and getting through to the end. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have done, please give it a tick up. You might want to follow us. Obviously, it's a subject that's only going to be of interest to people who are going through it at the moment. But if you'd follow us, be very appreciative of that. And by all means, give us any feedback that you might have on this. We'll always take anything into consideration, and we'll get back to you about any comments that you've got. Thank you very much. Bye.